Hi there, and welcome back to Timeless Wisdom. Have you ever reached a point where inner calm feels more meaningful than being in a relationship? As we journey through life, many of us discover that what once brought happiness might no longer hold the same weight. It's not unusual for peace and contentment to become the true treasures we seek, while the idea of a partnership quietly steps aside. In this episode, we're shining a light on 8 unexpected reasons why so many older adults are choosing peace instead of pursuing new relationships. This decision goes much deeper than simply avoiding conflict or the dating scene. It's about how our priorities evolve with the years, how both mind and body begin to long for new sources of joy, and how our personal histories influence what feels truly satisfying. If you stay with us until the end, you may find yourself seeing your own life in a new light, maybe even finding comfort in exactly where you are now and where you're headed. No matter if you're single by intention or by chance, this video could be just what you need to stop second-guessing yourself and start honoring the quiet happiness you deserve. Let's dive in. Number 1. Emotional freedom feels more valuable than compromise. One of the clearest reasons many older adults choose peace over partnership is the deep desire for emotional freedom, something that starts to feel far more valuable than having to compromise. After a lifetime of adjusting to others, whether it was a spouse, children, or even co-workers, many people hit their 70s and realize they finally have the chance to just be. No debates about what's for dinner. No tiptoeing around someone else's mood, just silence when they want it, noise when they choose it, and feelings they don't have to explain. For most of their lives, they were told that relationships are about giving and taking, and while that might be true in many ways, giving often outweighed taking. So by the time someone reaches this stage of life, the idea of being in charge of their own emotional weather without pressure to manage someone else's isn't just comforting, it's healing. There's also the matter of emotional fatigue. Carrying the weight of someone else's needs, wants, and sensitivities, especially after decades of doing just that, can be exhausting. Even if the relationship itself isn't negative, the sheer act of constantly considering another person's emotional landscape can wear someone down. By contrast, emotional freedom offers something rare: clarity. When you don't have to adjust your feelings or reactions for someone else, it becomes easier to tune into your own inner peace. Take Robert, for example. He's 78 and was married for over 40 years. After his wife passed, people gently nudged him to date again, but every time he imagined it, he felt tense. Not because he didn't want companionship, but because he realized how much he valued the emotional space he now had. For the first time in decades, he could feel what he felt, when he felt it, without explaining or negotiating. That freedom, to him, wasn't lonely. It was calm. It was sacred. That's why emotional freedom is often misunderstood. It's not about shutting people out. It's about finally letting yourself in. It's about listening to your own rhythms and not having to trade your peace just to keep someone else comfortable. And for many after 70, that kind of peace becomes non-negotiable. Number 2, solitude allows full control over one's routine. Another surprising reason so many older adults lean into peace over partnership is the joy of living on their own terms, completely, quietly, and without interruption. When you're not in a relationship, every part of your day belongs to you. You get to decide when you wake up, when you eat, what you watch on TV, how you spend your mornings, your evenings, even how long you want to sit in the bath or read the newspaper. That freedom might sound small, but to someone who spent decades coordinating their life with others, it can feel like a breath of fresh air. People often underestimate just how mentally draining constant negotiation can be, especially in later life, when energy becomes more precious. Having to think, should I wake him up now? Or Will she mind if I eat alone tonight? Those little questions add up. But when you're alone, there's none of that. You get to move at your own pace, and that simple rhythm, uninterrupted and unburdened, is often what keeps people feeling calm and healthy. There's also a physical benefit that comes from being able to follow your own flow. Sleep patterns change with age, appetite changes, energy levels shift. When you're living solo, you don't have to apologize for needing an afternoon nap or a quiet evening. You can eat dinner at 4 if that's what suits your stomach, and you don't have to feel bad for it. And let's be honest, by the time you're 70 or older, your body has earned the right to do what it wants, when it wants. Take Elena, for example. She's 76 and used to joke that her husband never stopped moving. She loved him, but after he passed, she began noticing how much better she felt. Not emotionally at first, but physically. Her sleep improved, her digestion improved. She no longer had to keep up with someone else's schedule, and that freedom allowed her body to settle into a pace that worked for her. What she thought was grief fatigue turned out to be, in part, relief from constant adjustment. This kind of routine control also empowers people. When you can shape your environment and schedule without having to explain it or compromise, you begin to feel stronger, more centered. It reminds you that your life is still yours to shape, even now. That sense of autonomy might not have been possible while raising kids or maintaining a marriage, but in solitude, it flourishes. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. Number 3. Past relationships have drained their desire for new ones. For many people in their 70s and beyond, peace starts looking more appealing than partnership simply because past relationships have left them emotionally worn out. It's not always about bitterness or resentment, though sometimes that's part of it. More often, it's a quiet acknowledgement of how much energy a long-term relationship can take. And when you've already poured decades of yourself into one or more partnerships, starting another just doesn't feel worth the emotional expense. There's a kind of emotional tiredness that settles in after years of managing disagreements, misunderstandings, and mismatched expectations. For those who went through difficult marriages, or even just the ordinary wear and tear of long-term companionship, the idea of beginning all that again can feel less like an opportunity and more like a weight. Even a kind, respectful relationship demands effort, and for someone who has already walked through years of emotional labor, it's natural to think, I've already done my part. This isn't about closing the door to love. It's about recognizing what you no longer need in order to feel whole. After a certain age, people begin to understand that they don't have to chase something just because others expect them to. Instead, they get honest with themselves about what they're truly up for. And for many, that honesty points away from romance and toward peace. Consider Harold, who's 81. He divorced in his late 60s after nearly 35 years of marriage. The split was civil, but exhausting. Afterward, he went on a few dates, but each time he found himself comparing the energy he had to give with the peace he felt staying home. He wasn't angry, he wasn't bitter. He just didn't want to carry anyone else's emotional world anymore. And that wasn't loneliness, that was clarity. There's also a deeper truth that many won't say out loud. Sometimes we carry small scars from past relationships, words that cut, silences that hurt, years of trying to fix something that wasn't fixable. And as we age, we may decide that healing those wounds quietly in our own time is more important than opening ourselves up to new ones. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. It's knowing that you've paid the emotional cost before and deciding you no longer want to take out another loan. There's peace in making that decision, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. Not because one has given up on love, but because they've learned how to love themselves better. And when that kind of peace settles in, it becomes easier to step away from the pressure to try again, and instead step into a life that finally feels restful. Number 4, health limitations make personal space more important. As we age, our bodies start speaking louder, sometimes in whispers, sometimes in aches. And when that happens, peace and space often become more important than companionship. For many older adults, managing chronic conditions or daily discomfort becomes a full-time responsibility. And even the kindest, most well-meaning partner can unintentionally add pressure just by being present. That's not anyone's fault. It's just a truth that becomes clearer with time. Pain has a way of making small things feel big. Simple interactions, like responding to questions, keeping up with conversation, or even having to consider someone else's pace, can become exhausting when your back hurts, when you haven't slept well, or when your medication schedule rules the day. The last thing you want is to feel like you're letting someone else down. Being alone, at least some of the time, allows you to focus on your health without guilt, without the need to perform, and without apologizing for what your body now needs. Take Margaret, age 74. She has arthritis in both knees and is in the early stages of managing blood sugar issues. A kind man she met at a church group once offered to take her out to lunch. She smiled and declined, not because she didn't like him, but because she didn't want to explain that some days walking from the car to the restaurant is a challenge. She didn't want to pretend to feel up for something when in truth she just needed to rest with her heating pad and a cup of tea. That decision gave her peace, not because she feared connection, but because she honoured her body. And honouring your body, especially after 70, becomes a kind of self-respect. You begin to realise that it's not selfish to want quiet. It's not rude to decline invitations. It's not giving up to choose ease over effort. In fact, it takes courage to say, my well-being comes first now, and mean it. There's also something powerful about not having to explain yourself. You don't have to justify why you need to cancel plans, why you want to eat at a certain time, or why you sleep better alone. Living alone, or at least choosing not to be in a relationship, gives many older adults the freedom to centre their health without the burden of guilt or social performance. And that alone is worth more than most people realise. Number 5. Friendships and family provide all the intimacy they need. For many older adults, the deep emotional connections they once sought from a romantic partner are now found in places that feel more nourishing, more reliable, and far less complicated, like long-standing friendships and close family ties. Over time, people begin to realise that intimacy doesn't only come from romance. It comes from being understood, from being heard, from knowing someone cares whether or not you're feeling well today. Friendships in later life often carry a different kind of depth. They've been through decades of changes, challenges, and shared memories. These relationships don't come with the same kind of emotional expectations that romantic ones do. There's no need to impress, no pressure to entertain, no misunderstandings about how affection is shown. Just a phone call, a visit, a shared cup of coffee, or even a quiet moment watching the birds from the porch. These moments fill the emotional cup in ways that feel easy and honest. And family too plays a bigger role than people sometimes admit. For many, grandchildren have become the source of joy. Adult children may provide a sense of connection, pride, and purpose. Even siblings or cousins, people who've walked through life's chapters with you, offer a kind of emotional bond that no new relationship could replicate. When you're surrounded by people who love you, not for who you used to be, but for who you've become, you begin to see that partnership isn't always necessary to feel complete. Consider Frank, who's 82. He lost his wife several years ago and never remarried. When asked if he was lonely, he shook his head and said, My granddaughter calls me every night to say goodnight. My best friend lives across the street. I've got more love around me than I know what to do with. He wasn't joking. That connection, that warmth, it didn't come from dating or relationships. It came from being present with the people who already filled his heart. What's surprising to some is that this kind of intimacy, non-romantic, non-sexual, but deeply emotional, is often even more fulfilling. There's no fear of betrayal, no tension around differing needs, just connection in its simplest form. It's a reminder that what most people crave isn't partnership for its own sake, but the feeling of being seen, valued and safe. And that feeling, it turns out, can come from many sources. In choosing peace over partnership, many older adults are not rejecting love. They're just redefining where they find it, and more importantly, how they want to receive it. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 5 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. Number 6. They no longer fear judgment or societal expectations. One of the most liberating parts of growing older is how little you care about what other people think. After spending a lifetime trying to meet expectations, whether it was marrying at the right age, staying in a relationship for the sake of appearance, or pretending everything was fine when it wasn't, many people over 70 begin to let go of all that. And what replaces it is powerful. Peace rooted in self-trust, not social approval. There was a time when being single at an older age was seen as sad or unfortunate, but that idea is slowly fading, and for good reason. Seniors today are wiser, more self-aware, and far less interested in living to please anyone but themselves. They've earned the right to make decisions based on what feels good, not what looks good. Take Joan, 79. She was widowed in her early 60s and dated on and off for a few years. But she eventually stopped, not because she couldn't find anyone, but because she realized she didn't want to explain her life choices anymore. She didn't want to hear, "Why don't you settle down again?" or "You must be so lonely." What she wanted was to walk her dog every morning, drink her tea in peace, and go to bed when she felt like it. And for her, that was happiness. The truth is, after a certain age, the fear of being judged just fades. You've lived through enough to know that no one else gets to define your joy. You stop performing, you stop apologizing, and you stop letting outdated social norms push you into things you no longer want or need. That mental freedom is one of the great rewards of aging. What's surprising is how many people, once they let go of societal expectations, actually feel younger, not older. They laugh more. They dress how they want. They decorate their homes the way they like. They spend time with people who energize them, not those they feel obligated to entertain. And they stop worrying about whether or not they fit someone else's version of a full life. This shift often leads people to walk away from relationships, not because something is wrong, but because they've finally given themselves permission to choose peace. And that permission, that quiet confidence, becomes more valuable than any label society can offer. Because when you realize you don't owe anyone an explanation, you become free to live exactly how you want. And that, more than anything, is where peace begins. Number 7. Financial independence reduces the need for partnership. For much of history, relationships, especially in later life, were shaped by practical concerns. People partnered not just for love, but for survival. A shared income, someone to help with the bills, a second social security check. These things mattered, and they still do for many. But more and more seniors today are financially independent. They've worked hard, saved wisely, and in many cases simply need less than they used to, and that shift changes everything. When you're no longer relying on someone else to help cover the basics, your reasons for being in a relationship begin to change. The question becomes not, who will help me manage this? But instead, do I truly want to share this life with someone? For many, that answer is no, not out of bitterness or disappointment, but because they've realized they don't need anyone to complete their life. They're already whole. Financial freedom brings emotional freedom. It lets people make choices from a place of strength, not fear. It means you don't have to tolerate a relationship that drains you just because you're afraid of managing life alone. It also means you're less likely to overlook red flags or settle for companionship that feels more like a transaction than a connection. You're free to expect more or to walk away entirely. Let's take an example. Walter, 75, a retired postal worker. He owns his small home outright, has a pension, and lives simply. Years ago, he thought he'd remarry after his divorce, but after a few years of solo living, he realized how much peace he had. No money fights, no feeling guilty about personal spending, no pressure to provide. His budget was his own. His choices were his own. And with that financial independence came something even more valuable: peace of mind. This isn't to say people with limited income don't value peace too. They absolutely do. But when finances are secure, the emotional calculus of relationships changes. You no longer feel compelled to stay in something that doesn't bring joy. You're not forced into roles you've outgrown just to share expenses. You get to live on your terms. For many, this realization comes as a quiet, powerful shift. They look around their home, small maybe, but cozy. They see their bills, manageable. They check their bank account, not overflowing, but steady. And then they breathe. Not because they're rich, but because they're free. And that freedom allows them to say no, not to love, but to pressure. Not to companionship, but to the kind that costs more peace than it's worth. Number 8. Spiritual or personal growth becomes the priority. In the later years of life, something begins to shift deep within, a quiet but powerful pull toward inner growth. After decades spent tending to others, managing careers, raising families, and navigating relationships, many older adults start to crave something different. Not another partner, not another chapter in romance, but a deeper connection with themselves, with their faith, with their purpose, with the peace that comes from simply being still. This change isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it starts with a simple habit: early morning walks, quiet evenings with a book, or moments of reflection with a cup of tea by the window. But over time, those small rituals become sacred, and in that space, many begin to realize that their energy is better spent exploring the inside world than adjusting to someone else's. There's also something about facing the reality of aging that naturally turns the focus inward, not out of fear, but out of clarity. Time starts to feel more precious, priorities sharpen, and many begin to ask the questions they never had time for before. Who am I without roles to fill? What does peace mean to me? What truly nourishes my spirit? For some, this takes the form of faith. They return to church, prayer, or quiet moments of gratitude. For others, it's about creativity, writing, painting, gardening, or simply observing life with a new kind of wonder. And for many, it's about healing. Finally making peace with past regrets, unresolved wounds, or the parts of themselves they once tried to hide. Linda, age 80, explained it beautifully. She said, "When I was younger, I looked for love in other people. Now I look for truth and silence." She didn't say it was sadness. She said it was strength. Because for her, growth wasn't something she expected from a relationship anymore. It was something she found in solitude, in listening to her own thoughts and honoring her own rhythm. When growth becomes the focus, relationships often feel like a distraction, not because they're bad, but because they demand energy that could be spent on something deeper. Solitude, on the other hand, allows for full access to your inner life. You begin to feel more connected to the person you've become, and perhaps for the first time, more at peace with everything you've been through. So, while the world might ask, "Aren't you lonely?" those who've chosen peace know better. They're not lonely. They're listening, they're learning, they're living a life that's less about noise and more about meaning. And that kind of life, that's not empty, that's full. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 8 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Timeless wisdom. Final reflections. As we close today's video, I invite you to pause and consider these 8 unexpected reasons so many older adults are now embracing peace rather than seeking partnership. Did any of these insights resonate with your own experiences? Perhaps you recognize something in yourself that you hadn't named until now. Remember, choosing peace doesn't mean withdrawing from the world or shutting people out. It's about finally honoring your own rhythm, paying attention to what your body, heart, and soul are telling you, and letting that wisdom shape the next chapter of your journey. Whether your solitude is by design or by circumstance, you deserve to put serenity before stress, and to heal rather than hustle. If even one of today's reasons spoke to you, I hope you leave with a deeper confidence in your own choices. There's no single right way to navigate life after 70, but there are countless ways to find more clarity, less pressure, and a gentler kind of happiness. That is the gift of peace, and it's never too late to claim it. Thank you for spending this time with us at Timeless Wisdom. We'd truly love to hear from you. Please share in the comments what stood out for you, or one insight you'll carry forward from today's discussion. Your reflections inspire us more than you know. If you found this video valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your ongoing support helps Timeless Wisdom continue to create thoughtful content for you and our community. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to welcoming you again in our next video.